We're joined now by Professor Corné van Walbeek, Principal Investigator of the Economics of Tobacco Control Project at UCT. Good evening, Professor. Thank you very much. This is the second survey, so I wanted to ask you what is different, first of all, around the price of an illicit cigarette. Is the price going up or are the prices going down?
Yes, thank you, Sally. So when we did our first survey, which took place at the beginning of May, we found that the prices of cigarettes had increased by approximately 90% relative to pre-lockdown. What we found in this particular survey, which took place at the beginning of June, that prices had in fact increased on an average by 250%. Those price increases are not the same across the country. We find that in the Western Cape and in the Northern Cape, and to a lesser extent in the Eastern Cape, prices have increased by much more, by as much as 400% over that period, whereas prices in the northern provinces, specifically Limpopo and Mpumalanga and also Gauteng, have increased by anything between 120 and 160%.
And so in other words, basically, am I correct that the longer the lockdown continues, the more of a premium you're going to pay for your black market cigarettes?
That is correct. When we did our first survey, we found that even while we were doing that survey, the prices were increasing by about 5% per day over that period. What we are now seeing is that the prices during the period where we did the survey, those 14 days, have actually not increased much at all.
Okay, now the other thing, which is slightly good news, and surely one thing that government will be hoping, is that the survey which you did, which is an online survey, shows some 9% of respondents have in fact during this time used it as an opportunity to give up smoking, which is actually great news. It's slightly higher than your first in your first survey, but mostly it's not health reasons, it's purely the economics. So the higher the price of the cigarettes, just absolutely priced out of some people's reach. But worrying, more people are now sharing cigarettes, I would imagine also because of those economic reasons, which is exactly the opposite of what government's trying to achieve.
Absolutely. So what we find is that before the lockdown, 82% of people indicated that they never share a cigarette with somebody else. That percentage has decreased to 74%. So by implication, 26% of people are now sharing cigarettes. What was particularly disturbing in our survey was that before the lockdown, about 2% of people shared more than half of their cigarettes with someone else. During the lockdown, nearly 10% of people are sharing their cigarettes, half of their cigarettes with someone else. So the intensity of sharing has increased quite significantly over this period. And that is, of course, something that you don't want to happen, and that's exactly what the government did not want to happen.
Where are the cigarettes coming from? Now, I know Devon told us earlier that the international brands are not the ones in great circulation on the black market. It is, in fact, the independent local brands, the ones produced by FITA, the very same people who, in fact, are challenging a government. It seems almost counterproductive. But then again, I would imagine these are not official sales. These are backhand sales. These are sales leaving the factory floor, perhaps without the manufacturer's knowledge. Where are they coming from?
So most of these cigarettes are produced within South Africa. We didn't actually speak to producers of cigarettes as to where these cigarettes came from. In terms of the FITA situation, the following. So FITA is a representative body of 7 organizations. And what we find is that FITA wants to present itself as being a clean and honorable organization fighting on behalf of the so-called small producer. What we are finding, though, is that the many members, or the 7 members of FITA, they've really taken advantage of the lockdown situation, and they have significantly increased their market share, admittedly in a decreased market, because we also know that even continuing smokers are smoking somewhat less. They've reduced their consumption by 20%. But at the same time, there's also been a number of people that have quit smoking. So the market is much smaller. But the shares of the FITA affiliates, not FITA itself, FITA is not a manufacturer, it's an organization. The share of those members has greatly increased over time.
Are there lessons for when the ban ends? It suggests perhaps if government just hikes the price, maybe a lot more people will give up. Or do you expect a bit of a price war, bearing in mind that the illicit traders are really getting a foothold in the market?
Yeah, I think the market is in significant turmoil at the moment. The multinationals are terribly upset, as one can imagine. Their market share decreased from more than 75% pre-lockdown to about 18% at the moment, based on our sample survey. The local manufacturers have significantly increased their market in the other direction. So when the lockdown is finished and the sales ban is over, I suspect that there's going to be a price war, in the sense that the multinationals want to get their market share back. The local manufacturers want to hold on to their new market share, and the best way to do that is by decreasing the price. Our very strong proposal to government is, if there's going to be a price war, increase the excise tax. Increase the excise tax. It gives money to the government. The government is currently losing R1 billion a month. It will allow the government to claw back some of that money, but the important proviso is that there's got to be some control in terms of illicit cigarettes. If the illicit cigarette market is going to go to 40, 50, 60%, then that would be a very significant problem, and it would sadly be a direct consequence of the entrenchment of the illicit trade within the market at the moment.
Well, fascinating information. Thank you very much. Corné van Walbeek, Principal Investigator of the Economics of Tobacco Project at UCT.